catch up. Well, once again, welcome everybody to our webinar series put on by a collaboration between the Associations of Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. We're very happy you could join us. Today, we are welcoming Jennifer Wiegert and Corrina Duffitt. And thank you very much, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for having us. Okay, we'll share our screen here. Make sure everyone can see us. Okay, everyone can see that. Okay, so we're just talking about where do you start if you have received a diagnosis of Rett syndrome with AAC in communication. So we'll start with our introductions. I'm Corrina. I'm originally from Newfoundland, and I moved here a long time ago. I live now in Langley, BC. I completed my master's degree here at UBC. Worked in Surrey School District since 1997, and I went full-time into AAC in 2004, just when I was coming back off mat leave with my daughter. I've been doing that ever since, and I love it. I'm currently on leave of absence from Surrey School District and trying to decide whether I'm going back to Surrey School District or not, so I have till September. I'll be married 25 years this May, and we have 3 kids and 2 rescue animals. And
hi, I'm Jennifer Wiegert, and I'm also a speech language pathologist, and I'm from Calgary and have been living here in Surrey, BC since 91, I think. So I did my master's degree in speech language pathology in Bellingham, Washington, which is just below us over the border. And so I commuted over the border for 3 years doing my master's degree there. And then I ended up getting a job down there. So I commuted for 17 more years over the border. And I worked in a school district with preschool. They start with developmental preschool there in the school districts, and then up to high school age. Now I am part-time in Surrey with Corinna when she's there on the AAC team as well. And then I've been married, I think it's 23 this year. And I have 18-year-old twin boys and a house bunny, and I have a COVID puppy, Roman, a mini Aussie. So, and then Corinna and I joined our practices about 4 years ago, and we started Chickadee AAC. And so we provide specialized therapy for families and teams and schools, whoever needs our help, focusing on AAC. And we also wrote a curriculum for AAC for 2 college programs for their educational assistant program, which we've been really excited to be teaching for 4 years now at Surrey College and Stenberg College. And we are trying to get the EAs on board and understanding AAC implementation before they get to the schools. And we're seeing in our practice in the school districts that it is improving. The knowledge and the ability to facilitate communication with devices is increased with EAs since we've been teaching this program. So that's been really exciting to be doing that. And then we consult and train with teams, and we give workshops and that sort of thing. So here we are, and we want to just give you a really brief overview before we get into the big stuff. What is AAC? ASHA tells us it's the augmentative and alternative communication is an area of clinical practice that addresses the needs of individuals with complex communication disorders characterized by impairments in speech, language production, and or comprehension, including spoken and written modes of communication. So let's break that down. Augment. So when we have a system that's an augmentative system, it's used when the individual has some verbal speech, they have some form of communication, but it's not intelligible or not functional at all times. So they're augmenting their speech or their communication with some sort of device. And
Jennifer, sorry,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but we can't see your slides.
Oh my gosh.
oh,
Well, that's a problem.
Sorry.
oh no. Okay, 1 minute. Let's try to figure out what's going on here.
We didn't screen share.
Thanks for letting us know before we got to like, okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to share screen. Okay, here we go. Right, that one. Or desktop one we want. Okay, and then we're going to share. I'm so sorry.
Hit sound.
Do I have to hit the sound? Go back, unshare?
We can see slides now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
We're gonna
Stop share. I
make sure we
forgot to
hit
hit
the,
the
the sound right
sound.
now, just so that we can.
Okay, show me where
Right
that
here.
is. Oh, good. I didn't know about that. Okay, perfect. Okay, we're back on track, and now you can see what we're talking about.
So here we are.
Okay, play from current side.
You can see it now.
Now you can see.
Now you
it.
can see it, yes.
Okay, so an alternate AAC system is used when it's in place of speech that's absent or not functional. So the individual does not have any mode of communication at all, and they need an alternate form of communication. So it can be used temporarily. So for example, our COVID patients who may be intubated with breathing tubes, they may have a temporary use of AAC, and some will be lifelong learners, and it will be a permanent way that they communicate throughout their life. So why do we communicate? So according to Maslow, there's 5 basic areas of need. So there's physiological, safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization. So when we're thinking about these, when we get started with AAC, like at the very beginning of your journey, you may just start with trying to meet just the basic needs, like being able to request food and water and clothing and shelter, favorite things that you want to do. But when you get to past that point, we want to have systems that are robust, that allow them to communicate whatever it is that they want. That's always the long-term goal, and it may take a little bit to get to that point. So we're going to go over where some people might be at the beginning of their journey, and some people may be a little bit more advanced in their journey, because we weren't sure what the audience consisted of. We want to make sure that we get information for everybody. So we're going to go over some myths of AAC, because we often will start, as you saw with the robust system on the right-hand side of that screen, was a lot of buttons at the beginning. And so families and teams are often surprised that we introduce that to start with. And so there's some common myths and misconceptions that we would like to just go over to make sure that we all are on the same page with that. So all individuals are potential candidates for an AAC system, but there's a lot of myths out there that are preventing individuals from getting appropriate AAC early on. And they're having to either wait for systems, or they're getting systems that are way too simple and do not provide enough language for them. So one of the myths is that the child is too young for AAC. And so they think, well, it should be a last resort. Let's wait and see if their speech develops. And then if it doesn't, then we'll look at AAC.
I just wanted to jump in here just for a minute, because I know if some of you are listening and you've got a very young child just diagnosed with Rett syndrome. I recently had a conversation with a parent whose daughter was 3, and she had been told by her team, her early intervention team, that her daughter could wait for a system until she got to kindergarten. She didn't need it yet. We're telling you these myths as well, partly because we want you to know that that's not okay. Mm-hmm. Nobody's waiting to talk until kindergarten. So just so you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, we're not going to wait to see what happens, or to wait till they get into kindergarten. because that's going to be 3 years that is lost time in regards to language and literacy and connection with family and friends. And then you'll often result in behaviors. So rather, as a last resort, we want to start as early as possible, as early in the journey as you can. It does aid for those who will be able to speak. It does aid in natural speech development. And it's going to increase vocabulary, because even if you don't have expressive output, working on an AAC system is going to build your receptive language skills. And so those receptive language skills are often a lot higher than the expressive skills, but we're going to keep building them with AAC. And so we don't want to wait, because that's lost time for building language.
Okay. Our third myth is that prerequisite skills must be mastered before AAC is introduced. So this is also inaccurate, old belief that children must begin with low tech before they can progress to using a high tech AAC device, or even that they need to have like certain skills, such as they need to understand what cause effect is, and they need to understand what those little pictures mean, or they need to be able to match before they can use AAC. And the reality of that is that if you start with something, say like PECs, and then after they master PECs, then you might introduce them to a high-tech device. Well, then they need to start over and relearn a brand new communication system, which just slows down their progress and is not necessary. So really, when we're thinking about, is a person a good candidate for learning AAC, what you need to keep in mind is this next flow chart, okay? Is the person alive? Yeah, no? Well, they're not a good candidate. Yes, they are a perfect candidate for AAC. There is, this next slide shows us a quote from Pat Miranda from here in BC, and she has said that we have discovered increasingly that communication has only one prerequisite. It has nothing to do with mental age, chronological age, prerequisite skills, mathematical formulae, or any of the other models that have been developed to decide who can get AAC and who cannot. Breathing is really the only prerequisite that's relevant to communication. Breathing equals life, and life equals communication, and it's that simple. So again, we don't want you, if you're just starting on your journey, we don't want you to, I guess, be told that your child has not met this and this and this other prerequisite. There are no prerequisites. Getting started just means that dive in and get started, okay? Don't let anybody tell you no. Okay, another myth is that an individual can be too low functioning, quote unquote, for AAC. Myth. So when we are working with individuals with severe disabilities, particularly intellectual disabilities, many professionals assume the individual is too cognitively impaired to use AAC. And unfortunately, there's still a misconception that an individual has to meet certain criteria before they're provided with AAC support and intervention. It's changing, but changing slowly. All too often, of course, we underestimate the potential abilities of these individuals. And we know, with our children with Rett syndrome, we know how potential and intelligence can be masked just by the complexity of their bodies. And so what we want you to do is presume competence, okay? The least dangerous assumption tells us that if we believe an individual can acquire communication skills and then we provide them with AAC and intervention, there can be no damage, right? However, if you believe that an individual cannot acquire these skills, they cannot learn AAC because it's too complex, and we're wrong. So if we assume that and we're wrong, we have done immense damage. So it's best to presume that these children, these individuals can learn, they can learn AAC. They may learn it differently. It may take a different, different amounts of time for each individual, but they can learn it. And so if we proceed like this, we are doing, we're not doing any damage by teaching them, right? Okay.
Okay, another myth is that if a child has an AAC device, they can communicate. So a lot of times when an individual is set up with a communication system, unfortunately, sometimes the support stops there. And so once you have that system, that's not going to be the key to communication. The key is going to be knowing how to use it and how to implement it. Somebody can give me a tennis racket, and I'm not going to be able to play an amazing tennis match just because I have a really expensive, really nice tennis racket. So somebody has to coach me and teach me and go through all of the steps in order to get to being a functioning tennis player. And it's the same thing with our AAC users. They need direct instruction, opportunities to practice. They need other people speaking the same language as them in order to make progress. So really giving them the system is just the first step in the journey. And so once you get there, then you make sure that you've got support in place to help you continue that journey and learn the implementation of it so that your child can become a proficient communicator.
Right. We're hoping to give you some tips depending on where you are in your journey. So your child may have just received a diagnosis and you're like just learning everything that you need to learn to help her along. You may be on a wait list for early intervention. I know here in British Columbia, they can be as long as 2 years. Yeah. That's a lot of wasted time. You may have had some intervention. Maybe you feel like you're stalled. I do know that some families here, and I'm sure in other areas in Canada, have received high-tech devices, and for 3 or 4 years we're playing games and not really doing any communication because they haven't really had that guidance. So we realize that you might be in different places on this journey. I know some of you are trialing right now. So we're going to try to address perhaps the needs of people at different points in that journey. Okay. So what we've done, we're going to look at AAC, and we're going to look at, for those of you who maybe have just received a diagnosis or do not have, a high-tech robust system, when we're going to tell you what that is, we'll talk a little bit about some things that you can do, as well as some things you can do if you do have a robust vocabulary, but you're not quite sure how to proceed. Okay, so if you do not have that big vocabulary, we'll talk about shaping yes, no. Oh my goodness, what's happening? My tranny is oh, look at that. Many routines and schedules and choice making. And I'm sorry, the animations clearly are not working on this, but with robust, which is like a high-tech vocabulary or a pod system, we'll talk about getting familiar with it, modeling, attributing meaning, and having it present at all times. And so depending on where you are, hopefully you'll be able to find something here that is helpful for you. Okay. So AAC is not just a visual schedule or a visual support. Okay, here this some pictures showing you what your day would be like. It is not just a choice board. It is not just a calendar, but it's a language system, right? It's a method. It's a method and strategy and tools that help our loved ones to develop receptive and expressive language to the best of their abilities. So neither one of these itself will constitute AAC, but the whole, it's more of a whole system that you can use to enhance communication, okay? It is therefore multimodal. So as standalones, visual schedules, choice boards, and calendars are not AAC. They can, however, be important parts of an AAC system that must include a robust AAC vocabulary, whether that's low tech or paper-based or high tech, like a Toby Dynabox with a robust vocabulary. So ASHA says, ASHA is the American Speech and Hearing Association. Augmentative and alternative communication describes multiple ways to communicate that can supplement or compensate either temporarily or permanently for the impairment and disability patterns of individuals with severe expressive communication disorders. So it's multimodal, okay?
Okay, so what's a robust AAC vocabulary? When we're talking about that, a robust vocabulary usually has at least 300 to 500 words within that system. It supports motor automaticity. So what that means is that those buttons are going to be in the same place all the time. So that once you get used to looking at a sequence of buttons to put together a message, you learn that sequence and it doesn't change. If the buttons are moved around, now you have to relearn that sequence of where the words are to create that sentence. So it's a very stable system. It doesn't change. What you start with it one way and you should try to keep it that way throughout as you're learning it. It has a wide range of word classes. So it's not just going to have a bunch of nouns, because if it's all nouns, that's basically a choice board. Okay, it's not robust because we don't communicate with only nouns. I don't walk in and say phone, stapler, coffee, fire, chair, right? So we need lots of different words. We need nouns, we need adjectives to describe emotions and descriptives. We need we need verbs to describe actions, prepositions to describe location words, in, on, out, after, first, to describe. We need lots of different types of words in our system, not just nouns. Grammatical forms, because as we progress with language development, we want to be able to speak in a grammatically correct way. And so these systems allow for that growth and for that ability to develop our syntax, our understanding of syntax and our use of syntax. An alphabet keyboard with word prediction, because we're always going to work on literacy skills with our individuals who use AAC. There's no reason because you don't speak that you can't read and write. So that's something we work on.
And it's also super powerful because if our loved ones are literate and able to spell, they can tell you anything they want to tell you. For instance, if there's a word that they really want to communicate and it's not in their system, if they can spell it, then they can tell you.
Pre-programmed messages or phrases. So these might be buttons where you press it or you look at it and activate it and it says an entire phrase like, I need to use the washroom, or how are you doing today? Instead of having to say each individual word to make up that message. So it speeds communication up because it's often hard for the communication partner to have patience, to wait for the AAC user to put that message together and then to activate that message. And so it speeds conversation up, but it allows that communication partner to stay engaged in the conversation. And then, like I said at the beginning, a core vocabulary. So those are the words that we use. All of us use core vocabulary to communicate. So about 80% of the words I'm using right now are core words. Fringe words are also known as personal vocabulary. And so my personal vocabulary, the things, the people and the places and the certain foods and my favorite things are going to be different than Corrina's personal vocabulary. So that's individual to each person. And so when we first get those systems, we really want to make sure we have the personal vocabulary on, because that's motivating. We want to talk about our own people, our things that we're interested in. So having a core is good, but we also really need to have personal vocabulary added on. So that's what we mean by robust vocabulary. So it can be either low tech. So here is a low tech communication book made with TouchChat, Word Power 42, or high tech. And this is a high-tech eye gaze device. I'm not sure which one.
It's, yeah, I'm not sure either, but it could be a grid pad. I'm not sure, but that's SuperCore.
Okay, and you
The
can see it's
vocabulary.
mounted on the wheelchair.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so some common robust systems, again, could be communication books. And again, in order to be robust, it has to have those 6 features that Jennifer just went over. Pod books are robust and dynamic. And in my experience, people either love them or hate them. But I feel like my clients who have really learned to use Pod and learned it well just love this system. So that's another robust system. And then some of the more popular vocabulary suites would be TD Snap and Sonoflex. Sonoflex is the one that's shown in the bottom right-hand corner. SuperCore, which I love, from Smartbox. Touch Chat with word power is very common, especially on iPads with direct access with like just a finger touch. That's very popular, as is Proloquo to go. So those are just a few. It's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. TD Snap is quite popular, I find, with our eye gaze users. Sonoflex, I would say less popular, but also quite robust. And SuperCore. This is SuperCore. This is not 30. I don't think that looks like more than 30. That's probably the 50.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, SuperCore 50, I believe, from Smartbox, which is British. And I think this is a lovely vocabulary personally. Just my 2 cents worth. And no, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just okay. So again, that's just a sampling. When you are looking at robust vocabulary on a speech output device for your child, make sure that you're working with the team. You should for sure have an OT and an SLP. I think depending on where you are, you might have an assistive technology specialist also involved, and maybe your physiotherapist, just to determine which system does meet your child's needs best. Positioning is going to be huge, right? Positioning and mounting. So you're definitely going to need your OT for that. We want make sure you trial at least 2 different vocabularies. If you can trial more than 2, I would suggest doing that, because you will find that you might prefer one over another, that your child might prefer one over another, or that you both may be more comfortable with one vocabulary over another. And of course, unless you trial more than one, you won't know that. So yeah, we would definitely suggest ask if you can trial a couple of different vocabularies when you're doing a trial on a high-tech device. Okay. So we have a couple of slides on access, because access is very important for our loved ones, right? And access refers to the way in which the person's going to select that button or that word from their vocabulary. There are 2 broad categories of access. The first would be direct access, okay? If it's direct access, you are pointing at, tapping, or removing a picture from a communication book or looking at, okay, or eye gaze. So you point, press, or look, and your selection is made. It's quick, it's efficient, and we do, I guess in the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so, since eye gaze has made huge leaps and bounds in how efficient it is, we have seen more and more clients with the Rett syndrome using eye gaze as their preferred method for robust communication. Okay. And there are lots of reasons for that. We'll touch on those just briefly too, okay? The other method is indirect access. So that's also known as scanning. So if you're looking at, say, scanning on a high-tech device, you would need to use switches. It could be 1 switch scanning or 2 switch scanning. Okay. With 1 switch scanning, the items are presented one by one and the communicator is listening. So they're listening to each of those items as they come up and they're waiting for the one that they want. When they hear that, they'll press that switch or, you know, somehow activate that switch to indicate that that's the one they want. And POD works this way too. It's just that there's no switches. You're using your yes, no. So you're waiting. But we'll go over POD in just a little bit. The communication partner can do the scanning as well as the device is what we're trying to say. And then if you have 2 switches, it's a lot faster. So the communicator would use 1 switch to move through all those items or all those words, and then they would use the other switch to select the one that they want. So you do need to have really reliable switch sites in order to do this. And most switches are activated using a body part of some sort, okay? And then there's the increased cognitive load as well to just even manage the switches. So switches I haven't found to be a popular method for our clients with Rett syndrome. And I think there are just a lot of physical reasons really and neurological reasons for why it is difficult to use switches. And I know that you're all very familiar with most of these, but we'll just briefly touch on them. So oftentimes dyspraxia is a characteristic of Rett syndrome, and that just means that those messages that the brain is trying to send to the body can be really inconsistent, or there can be a delayed signal, okay? So that can, you know, if you're trying to think really hard about getting, I don't know, we'll say a hand out to, or to touch a switch, then that can really make that difficult, right? As can apraxia, which is the inability to reliably connect your thought to an action. So we've got both of those things working to make switch access a little more difficult. And then there are the neurological stereotypies, so those unintentional movements. And we know that throughout the day, those movements can really, you know, increase as, you know, your child becomes stressed about something or is in pain or is tired. So those just make it, you know, harder to carry out intentional motor movements. So that makes it hard to use things like switches. I'm sorry, our animations seem to having a hard time here. So then there are breathing and alerting abnormalities. And again, that just, it all adds to difficulty making the body do what you want to do. It's not that they don't know what they're trying to do, right? It's just that it's difficult to make your body do that. So the ability to initiate movement decreases with demand. That's a biggie, right? So the harder your daughter tries, the more difficult it is for her to perform on demand. That's a lot to overcome. And I often think that for our girls with Rett syndrome, they like fighting against their own bodies for most of the day, right? So I think these are some of the reasons why using switches to access AAC is not super popular, I guess. And just with the improvements, like I said, in eye gaze technology, it's so much faster and more efficient and requires less planned and practiced body movements. And it's not to say that you shouldn't practice if you want to. And of course, everyone is an individual, and some girls will be able to use their hands to use switches for sure, right? Or other body parts. But you may be looking at eye gaze for sure. Okay. So our next slide. Okay, so if your child does not yet have a robust system, maybe you're at the beginning of your journey and you're just exploring options, where do you start? What can you do to begin? So first of all, you want to shape a consistent yes/no response. Because if you're going to be using partner-assisted scanning or using an eye gaze board, you're going to want to have your child be able to say yes or no. Okay.
Routine strips and schedules. So introducing those, because that's going to just help with that following a sequence, following a routine, getting to learn that those symbols are representing things that are happening in their lives, making that connection. And then introducing choice boards, because we all want to be able to make choices of things that are happening around us and to us. And so having that autonomy to be able to choose where you want to sit or how you want to sit, or what you want to do, or what you want to watch on TV, what you want to, who you want to go and visit. We want to have choices. And so introducing those early is a great way to start.
Okay. And identifying a consistent yes, no can be really a really powerful tool for your daughter, okay, for your child, your loved one. Most likely, your child already has a natural way of telling you yes and no, pleasure, displeasure, acceptance, and rejection. For a lot of our loved ones, it's they'll look at you if it's a yes, or yes, that's what I want, right? Or they'll look away or not look at all for no. And I think that is a strength. It's a strength that we already have. We can take that and we can work with it and shape it into a more definite yes and no. Oh my goodness, what's happening? Your child might look towards what they want. That is showing you, I guess, affirmation, not really acceptance, but they might move their body towards something that they want. It could be different for every child. What we want you to do is kind of look at what your child does when they want something, when they're interested in something, when they're excited about something, and begin to pair it with symbols. Okay, because this would help unfamiliar communication partners understand them better, for sure. And if you do want to do some partner assisted scanning, which again is powerful, then having a yes, no is necessary. Okay, now there is, I'm a huge fan of Linda Burkhart, and I know if any of you have listened to any of her works or presentations on switches and moving your body, learning new movement patterns, she does talk a bit about teaching your daughter, your loved one, to actually nod for yes and shake for no. And she admits that it would take thousands of repetitions and it can be really hard, but it is worth doing if you can. I know in my experience, I haven't seen that be very successful, but I have seen some girls who can use buttons with yes, no on them, okay, as well as looking at the partner for yes and looking away for no. So yes and no is powerful, okay? And this is just a little plastic board that I've made up with yes and no. If you do follow Rett University, they sell these nice little black fabric yes no panels that you can buy. I just made mine out of a piece of plastic core board. Here's Kayla with her yes no. She's showing you that she can use those. And we're going to have Ms. Kayla talk and show her yes no. Okay, and this is Hannah, I believe, right, Kristen? Yeah. There we go. Okay,
That is correct, yeah.
Video
okay.
on low tech yes no's. Do you still want to do this video?
I hope you guys can hear it.
Great.
Yes.
So that was one way to show me how you say yes. Should we tell everyone about how you say yes? Yeah. So a yes usually is full-blown eye contact, correct? Correct. What about how you say no? Good job showing everybody. You make it really
I can't really
clear
hear
that
the
you're not
volume.
looking at the person, right?
We're not
adjust it on here.
sure if we can adjust it. We do
I
have it
think we just
on.
about covered it all. Yeah, pretty much. Hey, all right. Thanks for modeling
It's
that
very
for me.
faint. I think it
Yeah.
just, yeah.
I think it's the video itself. Sorry, we do have the, yeah, it's turned off. We've got it up as much as we can have it up. Sorry about that. I hope it comes through better on the recording. Okay, if you couldn't hear, Kayla was demonstrating that her yes is full on eye contact and her no is just not making eye contact. Sometimes, Christina, I might not have that perfect, but she definitely looks at you for yes. And then in this next video, this is from We Speak Pod, which is the name of the website, I guess, for a family in the US who they use Pod with their 3 kids who have complex communication needs. And the mom does spend quite a bit of time teaching the head movements for yes and no. And she actually has like an entire like 10-step sequence, I think, that you can have a look at. So that's We Speak Pod. And Angela, oh my gosh, where's our, oh, sorry, I'll talk about Angela. We'll look at her yes and no.
Oh, Angela has something to say. Quick chat, something's wrong. I think it's, I want, let's go do something. No, I'm asking a question. I want to show you something. I'm telling a story. Yes. I'm asking a question. Yes, you're asking a question. Tell me yes or no. What? What's happening? No. Where is? Where are we going? Where? No. Why? Why not? Who? No. When are we going? When? Turn the page. Yes. When are we going? Yes. Was that a mistake? Was when are we going a mistake?
Okay, we're just gonna stop it there. So you can see that for Angela, and her mom's been teaching her yes no movements for a long time. She still has a really hard time sometimes with the nod. The yes can be like a tiny little nod. Sometimes she gets the shake for no and sometimes not. But mom is doing partner assisted scanning with Pod. So you see her go through each one of those symbols on the page, waiting for Angela's yes. Okay, so that's what partner assisted scanning looks like. And in order for that to be successful, having a yes no that are yes and no that are clear is really important. Okay. So. Oh, and here's Kayla. So Kayla, when she's demonstrating her yes, no, as well as partner assisted scanning, she's using a robust system, but it's not Pod. It's a printout of her SuperCore. You can do that with SuperCore, by the way. You can just print out the whole thing. They give you tabs and everything. So you'll see Kayla's yes. Wait, now, you know what? There's another one here. I just found another volume button. Sorry, you guys, we're going to try that one.
Okay. So partner assisted scan.
Hang on. I'm not sure if I can increase it. There we go. Okay, we're going to try that. So remember, Kayla's yes is eye contact.
So we're going to pick something to talk about. Just want you to give me some words and then we'll do another video. So on our homepage, we're going to go by groups. We have people, questions, actions, describe. You want to describe something? Yeah? Okay. Let's find describe. There we go, describe name. Okay, so we have our people words, our little words, looks, quality, tastes, sizes, and colors. Are we doing a people word a people word. Okay, so our people words are, is it, I'm, that, it's, your. 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 Okay, now we're gonna pick another describing word. Okay, should we do it by row this time? Okay, so first row. Is it a little bit broken, fast, loud, easy, soft, red, colorful? One of those words? One of those words. Is it? No. A little bit? No. Broken? No. Fast? No. Loud? I'm loud. Yeah, I know. Thanks for reminding me. Do you have other thoughts you want to share? Yes. Are they on the describe page? They are. Should we go by rows? Yes. Is it in the first row that I've read? No? No. Okay, so second row has the words, I'm a bit new, slow, quiet, difficult, hard, yellow, and color with a jump. Is it one of those? Remember, we can't select on this one. Oh, did you forget? So is it one in this second row? Yes. Okay. Is it I'm? No. A bit? A bit. Okay. Are we picking another word from describe? Yes. Is it also in the second row? No. Was it in the first row? It is. Okay. So we said a bit. So our first row has is it? You wanted to say is it? A bit, is it? Yeah? Is there more words you want to say? No? No. Okay. So you told me you're loud, a bit, is it? Am I correct that that was your thought? Yes. Okay, awesome. We are going to do another video about assigning meaning with those words.
Okay, that was amazing. Oh, no, sorry, I have to get out of there. Okay. So if you want to work on identifying a consistent yes and no with your child, we would suggest use some highly motivating activities or objects to determine what their best yes is, okay? So it could be food items if they're foodies. We don't know any of those. It could be music. Oh my gosh, I've got a couple of little ones who will do anything for Ed Sheeran or BTS. I'm not kidding. Didn't even know who BTS was. It could be their favorite book, anything that they really, really like, okay? You offer the preferred item to your child. When they look at you or move toward you, you can say, you're looking at me. I think you're saying, yes, you do want to listen to BTS. And as you're saying yes, you would point to the symbol that you've printed or drawn or download them from the internet, print them out. And so that's pairing, okay? When your child shows acceptance, when they're indicating a preference, you're pairing it with the yes. You're saying, oh, you're telling me yes. Okay, if they look away, you would point to the no and say, oh, you're looking away. I think you're saying no, you don't like that. You don't want it, okay? So that is an easy thing that you can start with if you're just beginning your journey, or if you're waiting for services. And again, it's important because, sometimes you forget that robust system, even if you do have one. And yes, no can really help you with choice making, with clarification of a message, right? And also, when you do attribute meaning on a robust system, you will want to confirm with the communicator that what you have understood and what you have interpreted is correct, right? Kayla is going to show us that right at the end. She's going to show us a little video on assigning meaning, just like Hannah just said, okay? And again, if you are partner assisted scanning, you are going to need that yes, no. So, it's from Jane Farrell. I want to talk about this one.
Okay. So routine scripts, trips, and schedules. So these are either symbols or photos, and they're arranged in the order of an activity or routine. It's going to show what's happening or what will happening, and what will happen and when something is finished. So you are communicating to them about the schedule, but it's not a system for them to communicate back to you, right? We don't talk with our schedules on our phone, right? We look at it to see what's happening, but it's not a communication system. So it's a way for you to communicate to them. You're providing input using symbols. So you are teaching them what these symbols mean, because eventually you're going to want them to communicate with you with symbols. And so you're modeling symbol use in routines that are familiar to them, in a context that's familiar, which is where they're going to learn them the best, is pairing whatever's happening in that moment with the exact symbol to match that. As you do that consistently throughout the weeks, they're going to start to understand very quickly what those symbols represent. As you're doing that, even though they're not communicating anything back to you, you are improving their receptive language, right? Their understanding of language is growing as you're doing that. So they don't need to give you any output in order to further their language skills. They are growing their receptive language. Okay, routine strips. So here's an example of brushing your teeth. So first we're going to get your toothbrush, then your toothpaste, then we're going to put the toothpaste on the brush, then you're going to brush your teeth and rinse your mouth. So you go through and you label each, and you label and point to each step as it's happening. Sometimes you pull them off and you might put them in a finish pocket as you go. It just depends on how you have it set up. Here's another, oh, look at that person on the bed. I look very comfy. Here's another one about, whoops, sorry, nap time. Okay, and we're gonna listen to some music before we go to sleep. Okay, and so again, you are going to label each part as you go. And what you'll notice is that when you start to teach symbol use and understanding of symbols, when you're using nouns, they're very easy to understand because the symbols are very literal. But when you get into different language concepts like fast or hot or open, they're more abstract. And so you need to model those symbols within the context that they're happening in order to build the understanding of what that little symbol means exactly. So even though you don't have a robust system right away, you can start building language. Choice boards, okay, again, they're not robust, but if you don't yet have access to a robust system, you want to have some choice boards, okay? It's going to give your child access to preferred items and activities. It's going to give them a sense of control over what's happening in their world. A basic expression of their preferences. So here is a song choice board where they can choose exactly what song they would like to sing or listen to. And this is a story. So what story would you like to read? If you're looking here, I know you want Brown Bear. If you're looking here, I know you want Geronimo Stilton, and so on. And so then, oh, I see that you're looking at the very busy spider. Is that what you want me to read? And then you'll want to look for the yes and no response so that you can read that book for them and confirm that that's the one that they want. Okay, so Corinna, take it away.
So if your child does have that robust system, whether it's a communication book, a pod, or a high-tech system like SuperCore on a Tobii i14, and you're still not sure what to do, and believe me, we have seen that as well. We've seen kids who've had systems for 3 or 4 years and still not really using it to communicate. So what are some things you can do to help them on this really important journey? Okay, So we're going to go over getting familiar with the AAC system, having that AAC present at all times, modeling without expectation, and praising attempts and assigning meaning. Okay, and then we're going to be done. I know we're running over. So getting familiar with the system. So with typically developing children, they learn to talk by listening to the adults and older children in their environment talk, 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 talk. And these adults and older children are really familiar with the language and they know how to use it. So they are good language models for our babies, right? Oh my gosh, my animation disappeared. Okay, oh, sorry. Similarly, children who are non-speaking also need to observe adults communicating with them using their AAC. So it's got to be the same principle, right? We can't expect them to use an AAC system having never been shown how to do that, right? Just like you won't play a piano unless somebody teaches you how to read music and then you practice, right? So the adults around our non-speaking children need to be familiar with and comfortable with their child's AAC system.
You need to all be speaking the same language.
Absolutely. Take time to get familiar with the system, whatever it may be, right? Doesn't matter if it's POD or SuperCore 50. Explore the vocabulary, touch those buttons, open the folders, turn the pages, practice having a conversation with a family member. So the more comfortable you are with the vocabulary, the easier it's going to be for you to model and the more fluent you will become. So then you will be one of those older adults in your child's environment who is familiar with their language and knows how to use it. Okay.
Have it present at all times. And so sometimes if you have a robust system, it's going to be harder, right? Because they're often very big and very heavy. So you need to talk to the OT about having it mounted so that it can go with your child on their wheelchair. So having a table or a floor mount is very important. And if you can't take it with you, you have to take some sort of backup system. So it could be like what Kayla had with the printout of all the pages of her high-tech vocabulary in that low-tech book, so that she's still familiar with all of the buttons and exactly where they are and what page they're on, but it's just in a more easily transportable system or a pod system. So you want to be able to take it wherever you go. So we can't just leave their voice behind and, oh, you can speak in this setting, but you can't speak in this setting. Okay, we need something that we can bring with them wherever they go.
And I think when you take it with you everywhere, you really are showing them that you value their voice and that you are always willing to listen to what they have to say, right? It's important. Okay, so modeling. Modeling is a method. Oh, sorry. So modeling means that we are showing the AAC user on their device how they will communicate. The communication partner, you would speak verbally while you're pointing to the symbols on the child's communication system. You don't have to point to every single word. You can just start with one word. For instance, if you're talking about going somewhere, you would just press the word go on the device as you're talking. Let's go to the park. Let's go to the grocery store. You know what? It's time to go to bed. And every time you say go, you press the little go button on your child's device, or you point to it in their book. Okay. So modeling is actually the number one way, I guess, research-backed, proven implementation strategy to help our AAC users to learn their systems, to learn how to communicate. Okay, and we've got a little video here from Powtoon about what modeling might look like. Okay, so here we go. It's pretty short. So really you're just pointing, and you're going to model without expectation. Okay, so you're not going to expect or demand that your loved one is going to make any selections on their AAC to begin with. Okay.
So, because think about our typical developing children. We speak to our babies for a year without demanding them to talk back to us. So that entire time that we are talking to them, we're modeling language within the context that they'll learn it over and over and over again. And again, they're building receptive language. So we can't give our AAC users a device and expect them to start using it after 1 month or 2 months or even 6 months. It can take time and time and time for them to learn it. So don't give up on them. We have to be very persistent and consistent, and just keep modeling and not expecting them or telling them to, oh, tell me this or point to this or touch that or look at this one. We are going to just model it without any expectation for them.
We're going to give them time and practice and exposure. Okay. And then while we're modeling, and while they may not select buttons on the device for a while, that's okay, right? However, when they do finally start selecting buttons from within the vocabulary, you need to give lots of praise, because that's a huge milestone. That said, sometimes they might select a button and you have no idea what that might mean or what they're referring to or trying to communicate, right? It might seem random to you. And I know I've heard some people say, oh yeah, you know what, she does that, but then people ignore her, right? And I don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. What we want to see you try, this takes practice. Oh my goodness, what is happening? Is to attribute meaning to any of those selections. Okay, so do your best to attach meaning to something your child has expressed within the context of that interaction. And that helps you to build on that utterance. Okay, and it also shows them that their attempts to communicate are valued by you. Okay, when we attribute meaning, we are becoming more responsive communication partners. And that's really important, because our loved ones with Rett syndrome are really, it's a lot of effort, right? To communicate. It's a lot of effort to engage and have these interactions. And if we can be more responsive to their attempts, then it's more, what's the word I want? It's more meaningful. It's just a more joyful interaction, I think. And it helps them to, yeah, it's encouraging. And it helps them to keep communicating and to enjoy those interactions, right? So we're building connections, and we're better able to decide which words we might need to model and focus on to build their language skills. We attribute meaning to our babies when they babble all the time, right? When your little one starts, your speaking child starts going da, 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 naturally we go, oh my gosh, she said, Daddy, that's right. Daddy is home now, right? There's no way that child was saying daddy. We just attributed meaning. We need to do the same thing for our non-speaking children, right? So if you do not have a robust system, and you're waiting, you just got your diagnosis, you can attribute meaning just by labeling their actions or gestures, their eye gaze as communicative, right? So if they're looking towards, their favorite stuffy, or they're looking towards their drink on the counter, then you say something like, oh, you know what? Oh, this happened to me actually last week. My little one I was working with got out of her seat at the table and was sitting on her beanbag on the floor and was just looking at the TV and then looking at mom and looking at the TV. And so mom went, oh, I see you're looking at the television. You want me to turn your songs on, don't you? Right? So that's labeling that eye gaze gesture as communicative and having meaning. Okay. And then if they're using their AAC and they randomly or seemingly randomly say something that you don't understand, that's okay. Don't treat it as an accident. Always respond meaningfully. And you might not get it right all the time, but that's okay. Okay. So for instance, if your child selects the button go, You say, yep, it is time to go to school right now. And I'm going to go home. So I'll see you next time, right? Oh my goodness, we're not getting our transitions. So don't ignore those attempts to communicate. It's really important that we try to keep that conversation and those interactions going so we can help them grow. We're going to finish with Kayla talking about assigning meaning, because if you'll remember from the previous video, she selected the words, you're loud, a little bit, it is, I can't remember, but here we go. Hannah's going to remind us. I'm going to turn the volume again. Let's see. Yeah. And then we're going to be done. I know we're over. We just have so much to say. Here we go.
So Kayla, when we first did our partner assisted scanning, I thought you were telling me that I was loud, and you confirmed it. You told me I was right. But then you gave me some more information, and I was able to understand that you meant something different, right? And that's how you like to write. If we don't understand, you give us more information to help us understand, right? Is it okay if your communication partner doesn't understand? Yeah? Is it okay if we make mistakes? Yeah? Is all that matters that we understand in the end? Yeah. Remember, you can make mistakes.
Okay. Because we all make mistakes in our attempts to be better communication partners. Okay. So in summary, your loved one is not too young or too low or too anything to start reaping the benefits of a well-implemented AAC system. You can start implementing AAC even if you don't have a high-tech device or even if you don't have a low-tech pod book. You can work on yes, no. You can start using some visual supports in your daily routines and some visuals to help your child make choices and express preferences. When the robust system does come, get familiar with it. Model without expectation, take it everywhere, and attribute meaning. Okay, remember, AAC is a journey, and your loved one's communication will develop with time, practice, and patience.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Does anybody have any questions? Well, that was really informative for myself. I appreciate that. My daughter has a robust system, and yet it's us that are the problem. We're not sort of putting the time in for it. And yeah, it's always a good reminder.
It's hard, right? Because, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is hard. It's hard to
you're busy, right?
have the time, and I'm not very techie, like I said earlier. Yeah, so
and don't beat yourself up too, because just even if you just choose like a specific routine in the day, or focus on a few certain words during the day, that's moving forward. So it doesn't always have to be all day, all the time.
yeah.
You know, even just do bit by bit, and you're making progress, you're moving forward.
Exactly. So for somebody who's just starting out, do you have a personal preference? Like, I know I hate to put you on the spot and on the record, but if you were like, if money wasn't an object and you think that this system is just the best, do you have a preference, or is it really like just depends on the child?
For me personally, like if we're talking about like high-tech eye gaze, are you thinking high-tech eye gaze?
Yes. Yeah.
I can tell you what I don't like.
Okay.
I don't like TD Snap.
Yeah.
TD Snap is too hard to navigate.
That's what we have, and we find it too. And then there's always some technical issues, so we're always swearing at the computer. And
Yeah, and I know, and it does have some, like, there are some real good points to TD Snap, but boy, that navigation, like over here to get to your groups, but over here where the topics are and that is just so hard. Like I have recommended not doing TD Snap just because the adults around the child cannot navigate it.
okay,
Just it seems to just have some kind of design flaw that doesn't resonate with me, right?
Yeah.
I do love Supercore. I know I've said that. I've been on record as saying I love Supercore for eye gaze.
Supercore. And
Really?
which company is that? The company name, Supercore?
No, Supercore comes with the grade 3 from Smartbox.
Smartbox.
It's
Yeah.
British, yeah, and yeah, it's really nice. The core itself, the core words they stay even as you go into topics, and they're always in the same place. I just think it's really nicely done.
We heard from Smartbox, and yes, it was very impressive.
I do like Smartbox. Yeah.
One other question for you. I think I know what you're gonna say, but this is, I'm asking for everybody. If somebody's daughter was older, 30, 40, is it too late to start?
Never.
using eye gaze?
It's never too late. It's
Yep.
never too late. Yeah.
Great. And we have somebody in our association who has a lot of mobility issues, like has trouble sort of holding their head up. And so eye gaze has been really problematic for them. Do you have any guidance on that?
A lot of help from the OT. I would, yeah. I mean, and I'm sure that they probably looked at lots of positioning and supports. I know sometimes, I mean, I do have a client that does not have Rett syndrome, but they're tilted. They're tilted back because of that. And the mount is just so that it's over them a little bit, right?
Okay.
So it could, like, I'm sure there's a way to deal with that. That's one thing I've seen is tilting.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. Because then you
Okay.
don't have, you've got gravity, your head's here, you can
Yeah.
squeeze your eyes, right?
Yeah.
So that I think I might try that.
Right. And then also maybe stick with the more yes, no,
Get a real good
learning how to do the yes and no is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can get like
for
a
that with my daughter.
yes, no, yeah.
She's tricky because she doesn't have really good eye gaze, or like really, she won't focus in on things necessarily, but
Right.
anyways, yes. Okay. Thank you
Can I ask
so much. Oh, does anybody else have any questions?
Corinna? It's Judy Zach from Dina. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you, and you
You
both gave a
too.
wonderful reputation. I had one question and one idea for Lindsay. Lindsay, if you take a card and you plasticize it, and one is red like a no sign on the road and green, you can model that, and then you can maybe get her to stare at that. That worked very, very 100% for us.
That's
So
a great idea.
So which just means that you have to ask yes, no question. You can't say, how are you feeling? Because you can't say good, but you can say, are you having a good day?
Yeah.
Right? Corinna, I have one question for you about what I wrote it in my message.
Amount.
Oh.
Amount. I sent you a chat question. When GF Strong mounted the Toby on her wheelchair, as soon as they went on the road or on a sidewalk, the calibration didn't hold.
Oh.
So how can you use it outside? Dina has a Toby.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. You know what? I don't know, because I'm not like by any means a mounting expert. But you mean as she's rolling along, or every time she stops, she has to?
Well, as soon as she's outside and she starts moving on something that's not a floor,
right?
Or then I'll ask
We're
GF
not
Strong.
talking to her while she's walking.
Yeah,
Right.
she's doing really, really great. Yeah.
Yeah, she knows her system well. Yeah. I mean, I think that's more of an OT question just because I don't know that much about mounts. I mean, I've seen lots of mounts and I know, and they're wonderful, but, and I don't know either, Judy, like, is her Toby older too?
How long ago did you and I meet?
Oh my gosh, before COVID or right at the beginning of COVID. So maybe like
Probably had it 5 years.
yeah, okay. Because I do find that the technology with the cameras is just getting better too. Like it's crazy how sensitive the new ones are.
But she's starting to type with her eyes with predictive
Oh.
spelling, and she's sending emails, and she called her niece back in the room yesterday. She says, I need a hug. And she called Holland and she said, I want to come visit you, Ivana. She's really, Lindsay, don't give up, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. We won't.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had more system that's not preferred.
I have a question. You know, we have companions that are inputting all the time information and more things for Dina to make choices. These companions are university students that have gotten very familiar with the Toby and how to use it and how to input. Is that valuable as much as trying a new system that maybe has more in it, like that something called SuperCore or GoPro, or what was that other stuff that we've never done?
SuperCore? I mean, I would think, and I have had these conversations before. If you're like, if she's really familiar with that system, I don't think I would change it.
But she doesn't have the fluency in speaking that I learned on the session that Corrina organized a few days ago, where you really see that the language has been analyzed, and when she speaks with those programs, it's really sounds completely
More connected,
educated and formed. So the question is, I don't know what I did wrong, but does the Toby also have a system that it talks on?
Absolutely. They're all like, all of those robust systems, they are complete language systems that you don't need to change too much. You just personalize, like by putting your family photos, your favorite foods, your preferred activities.
She has all that.
Right. But they also have that core and all the words necessary for making grammatically correct sentences. Right. And if we and I'm trying to remember Dina's system, it's a little bit vague for me, but if you try to build a system yourself from scratch, you're not going to get anywhere near one of those robust systems.
No, well, that's the point.
She had Communicator 5 with the Sonaflex and some of that stuff.
Right. And I remember her homepage seemed it's
a lot there.
Yeah. No, there's a lot there.
She has 2 home pages.
Right. So if you wanted to introduce another one, you would probably have to introduce them side by side. Like you wouldn't take away the one that she's familiar with, and you just start to teach her the new one because she's familiar with that, and she could, she knows where her things are. She can make her messages, and learning a new system is kind of like learning a new language.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions if you have a second. The first one would be if the SLP that we have with our daughter right now, she's not well versed in AAC, how do we get support through the school to have someone who's actually going to work with her to understand how to use the system?
Is this your private SLP or your
No,
school?
this is the government our healthcare SLP.
Okay, and she works with her in the school or outside of school?
Both. Yeah, both. So she does go in the school as well, but they're so new to this program as well, like with the SNAP Corps. And so I know that she's just not getting the benefit of the system because we don't have that person. If we go and pay out of pocket, for sure, yes, absolutely, right? We would hire somebody who has that knowledge. But how do we get the school to buy into something like this, like to actually get the support that they need to help her in school? Because she has an EA, but the EA doesn't have this kind of knowledge, right? Like she's learning as well on how to use the device. We're all learning, but we need somebody who's actually educated and understands how to use the program.
Are you in Saskatchewan?
No, in Ontario.
Okay.
because I'm wondering if you contact the like the supervisor of whoever's in charge of the SLPs, do they have an AAC team?
Okay.
How do they have a team of SLPs that specialize in AAC? Because I'm not sure how it's set up, or if they're just kind of expecting all SLPs to do everything, which there's so much to do that like now that we're specializing in AAC, if I had to do like fluency therapy, I don't know what to do because it is there's so much that you have to know. And so to have a school-based SLP that kind of covers everything, know that, I would ask whoever's in charge of all of the SLPs, do you have an AAC? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good step. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the other thing that's come up here with some of the families I work with in BC is, and this is hit and miss with the school team, but offering the Rett University those videos as Pro D. I mean, Susan Norwell's amazing.
Yeah.
Like those are good videos. We have run into some school districts here who will not allow them to be watched. I don't know why. And then other school districts have been, yes, if there's a video, I will have my team watch it.
Okay.
So
Sure, that's great advice. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good
okay.
resource, right?
And if I may add to that, we bought the whole system and we studied the whole
Rett U.
The whole what?
Rett U, yeah.
The Rett U, we ordered the Rett U stuff and we worked on it, and we worked on it seriously, and it'll help you. It'll give you a lot of confidence, and it'll give you a lot of knowledge of the inner workings of a child with Rett syndrome and how they think.
Okay.
It's well worth it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Something I'll look into for sure.
Sabrina, does your daughter have the same EA like from year to year? Does it change?
It's changed recently. Yeah. So it's not a consistent person. She's only in grade 1 right now. So it's just, kindergarten was 1, grade 1 is a new one. So I think that's the issue too, right? So we need to, and then I'm thinking about her next IEP meeting. I want to incorporate this, right? Because, the report card just came home saying, oh, she can identify 1 to 10. And I'm like, well, that's great. I'm really proud of that, but she could be doing so much more. I think they're just very limiting to her to what they think that she should at her developmental stage. And that's not fair.
Yeah, they don't know what to do.
Right.
Another thing that you could do is if you can find a private SLP who is versed in that system, to just have them consult with maybe even once a month, or do a training for the team. Where you wouldn't necessarily have to pay for ongoing service, but have her maybe do a training for the team and then give you some input on the IEP.
Okay.
And say, okay, well, this is what she could be working on, and this is how you would implement it, because sometimes the staff just don't know.
Yeah.
They just don't know what to do.
Okay.
And having someone come in with that knowledge and expertise is often very valuable.
That sounds good. Now, what is the actual speed on which an individual can should be, when you have your screen up there, is there a set speed on how fast they should be looking to activate it? Or does everyone have a different speed on how, like, I don't know I'm not trying to understand.
If it takes too long to activate the button, it's not going to be very rewarding for your.
And I think, so is there a typical speed, or is everyone different on how they?
I think everyone would be different, but I also think if your daughter's looking at that screen and it's taking a long time to activate the button, she's not getting the feedback she needs for that to be like real successful. So you can try setting it, like fast is usually about 0.8.
0.8?
0.8 seconds. Oh my gosh, I don't know. But you'll see, like if you're on, when you go into the settings, you'll see that it'll be like fast, medium, and slow.
Okay.
Right? And you can play with those. That's okay for you to go ahead and play with them. But I do find if we have a child who's not really looking a lot, or if it's taking too long, once you speed it up and you change, like you can change how the button like you can have it highlight in different colors that are more attractive so that they know, oh my gosh, I just got that button, and then it's speaking quickly. It's that cause effect.
Okay.
And that quickness that they might need to really go, oh, that was me. I said that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm going to look into it.
Those settings for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, because I missed the pod session, I think it was the first one, Christina, you're going to send me that recording if you could. Is that a low-tech device more? I mean, a book kind of thing, or is it something we can use in the Toby?
It's both. So pod started out as just as a book, but now they have them as high-tech, like eye gaze systems. So you can do pod, grade 3 has pod sets. Communicator 5 has pod sets.
Communicator 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Communicator pod type.
Thanks. So we have to look into that, put pod down there.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Corinna. Not so much for my girl, but for other families. What do you guys think of phrase-based communication systems versus individual words? So we just had a talk the other day from Smartbox, and they just introduced Voco, which is phrase-based. And then there's, of course, the Judy Patty pages that were made quite a few years ago that are all phrase-based. Do you like them? Do you like them together with a robust system, or do you?
Yeah, I think they have to be both personally.
Yeah.
Because you can't really generate a novel sentence if everything is a phrase. Like, I think the ability to do both needs to be
Yeah.
there.
Because
Yeah.
it does speed up communication, right? It
Yeah.
keeps communication flowing, and it's less frustrating for, I think, both communication partners if it can move a bit faster. But if you're only putting phrases in a system, you are deciding what that person can say. Like, I'm telling you that when you activate this button, this is what you can say. And they can't generate their own thoughts and ideas. So by having individual words, you can put together
do
your
that.
own thoughts. But if it's a whole phrase, I'm deciding what that phrase is. So having both, I think, is ideal.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly,
Because if you have phrases and
Okay.
let's say my daughter's 42, so we're talking, you know, we're
Okay.
dinosaurs, but the advantage of the phrases is that it's very satisfying for Dina to be able to say, I am hungry, I have pain. Then she goes to the pain page. My right shoulder hurts, my teeth
Yeah.
hurt, my right ear hurts. So it is really very satisfying that they can at some point really say what they want to say. And then, of course, our experts here are also correct, because they should also be able to create their unique thoughts. So, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they're mutually inclusive. And at the moment, Dina has mostly, I would say, phrases because
She also says, I want, I wish.
well, she has I want, I don't want, all that stuff that she learned all through the years when she was little. But yeah, both is important, I think. But I mean, and I feel very badly that we haven't given Dina more opportunity to say what she wants to say. But I think between the negative and the positive things, I think she does manage to very much talk about those things.
And it is
Yeah.
common for people to use phrase bases for like common phrases that we say all the time, like, hey, how's it going? Or how was your weekend? Or I think emergency
Yeah,
phrases like
yeah, like-
something hurts, I need to use the washroom.
basic needs, like they don't,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to go, I need to go to the bathroom. Like, if you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go now, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are some things that, yeah, you shouldn't have to go word by word. So, and I think we did say with robust systems that having some phrases
Pre-programmed, yeah.
pre-programmed phrases is a really important part. I know with and I'm not thinking of my clients with Rett syndrome when I say this, but when I'm working with kids, say using touch chat, like with my autistic kids, I want them to be able to say, I like it, I don't like it. I don't want them to have to go, I don't like this,
Right.
because you know what? If I have to wait for them to do that, we've got a problem. Right?
Yep.
So I think there are just some things that need to be really quick and really in there. And then personal ones, like more personal whole phrases, I think you add them as you grow with your system and you get to know what it is that they want to say, and they might change too, right? Like what a teenager wants to say in their phrases are going to be different than.
Yeah, or if you like, let's say you go to Disneyland, you have to suddenly create the page for Disneyland because they have to be able to say, I want to eat, I want to drink. That's all the usual stuff. But I want to go on the cup,
Yeah,
the cup, or I want to go down the,
I want to go to Indiana Jones. No.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say, I don't even know that I've used a whole phrase-based systems. And so, I mean, we're also, there's a whole new big thing about Gestalt language processors now that is kind of new buzzwords for AAC and for thinking about neurodivergent kids and well, people, communicators.
Yeah, who have echolalic speech. It's mostly for
echolalic speech and have learned in chunks. And so a lot of those phrase-based systems that you're seeing are having chunks because we have to deal with their language processing differently than if we're dealing with a child who's learning word by word and learning to build words together into sentences. It's a lot. But I don't think you could have just a whole phrase-based system and have it be super functional, I think.
So it's good to have both.
Absolutely.
Jennifer and Corinna, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do have one more question that I didn't realize I didn't know. For somebody looking for a computer for their child to get this robust system going, I only ever thought there was Toby. Now I'm learning about SmartBox. What other options are there?
So mostly what we see here, I would have to say, is the Toby or the a Surface Pro. A Surface Pro with the little camera attached is what the two big systems we'd see here. I've never seen a grid pad. I'd love to. I've just never seen anybody with, and we're used to dealing with like SETBC, which is special education technology for British Columbia students. And they only have like particular things in their lending library that they can let you trial. So, I mean, besides that, you can look at the Accent family. The Accent is kind of similar to the Toby, but it's made by Krentke Romich.
How do you spell it?
And is that the computer or is that the software?
No, that's the computer. So you know how the Toby is that big integrated device?
Right.
The Accents are similar. Big integrated devices. I think the grid pad is similar, although, right, Christina, you're not, yeah, it's similar, right? So it's big, it's an integrated device. And then a less expensive and lighter version is the Surface Pro, which is just a tablet.
That's what we have.
Yeah, and you just put the camera onto it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, we were going to put Krentke Romich in here, right? So there's the Accent. And they come in different sizes, like the Toby, right? You know how you have the Toby I-12, and then there's the 14, which is 13, which is bigger. Yeah. So then there's the Accent family from.
So why would I want to branch out to look at other equipment? What would be the advantage?
Just if you're at the beginning of your journey, perhaps trialing different types of vocabularies and different tips. And some of them are heavier than others, like depending on if you need to do mounting or how you're going to transport the system. Some of them are a lot bigger and more, like the Surface Pro is very light.
The Surface Pro is light. I mean, it has other mean, there are advantages and disadvantages to them for sure, right? But the Tobii is a nice device. I don't know that you need to be considering another one, Judy. But yeah, and the new Tobii is very nice.
What is the new Tobii?
The i13.
And what are we going to get that?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea if you're going to get it.
What is different with the Tobii 13?
It's lighter for starters. I think it's bigger and lighter, and you can use it in the sunlight now, and it's got it's got a communication partner window. So if you're talking to Dina, she's on this side, you don't have to, right? You can see all the things that she said on a little window on this side.
But the sun is wonderful, because right now you can't use the Tobii outside at all.
No, I know. They've come a long way.
And are there other things you have to relearn if you get another Tobii?
No, I mean, pretty much they're easier. Everything's easier. The calibration is easier. Everything has improved. You don't need to relearn, and your Dina's vocabulary, so that the page set that she uses would just go on to the new Tobii. You wouldn't start over from scratch, right?
Brilliant. Christina, do you have a Tobii? Christina?
So Kayla had an i12 Tobii, and she's just recently moved on to the new Surface Pro, which does work outside in sunlight. But if it's really bright, she can't even open her eyes. So it's really difficult for her still to use it outside, but it is usable outside. Like an overcast day, it does work. One thing that I just wanted to kind of clarify, I'm not sure if anybody understands, like it's a bit kind of confusing, but think of the devices as like an iMac versus a Windows computer. They're different. They're different computers. However, they all are Windows compatible. So you can.
Oh, you froze.
You can put Grid 3 on a Tobii, but you can put. Oh, better.
You're going in and out. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the hardware and the software. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can pick any device and you can pick any software and combine the two. Almost all of them are, I think they're all Windows compatible, except for the brand new Skyle, which we have somebody mentioning here as well, which I don't know how many people have had an opportunity to trial, but that's a whole new category that's just come out. So I know there's not a lot of backed research or trials on it yet. So,
and you can use that with an iPad.
Yeah.
Tablet. I'm assuming you can use it with a tablet. Yeah. It just gets better all the time. I think the technology is really.
And do most people take the table stand out to take the computer with when you go out? Because that's the one thing that we haven't done yet. I mean, she loses her speech the minute she gets out the door. So we do have that stand with a pole, and then you can mount the tablet on that. What do you see in your practices?
I mean, mostly for going out and about, the mount is on the wheelchair. That's what I've seen. And if it's a Tobii, like she has a Tobii, so when you take it off, that'll sit on the table nicely anyway. But with our like little ones, when they're in school, if they move to the carpet, well, that device needs to be able to be with them while they're on floor time, right? If they're sitting on the floor. So we've seen some nice mounts where you can adjust the Tobii. The mount is on the floor. You can adjust the device so that they still have their voice at carpet time. Or so and those are not expensive mounts. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the different situations that your child is going to be in, because you don't want it to, to be the case where, oh, well, you know what, she's on the floor, she's on the carpet, she can't use her device during that time.
Yeah.
You know how much time kids spend in carpet time in kindergarten? It's ridiculous, right? So just things to consider, right, when you're advocating.
So I have a question. It's Denise here. So if the individual is not ever in a wheelchair, what would you recommend for starting to use a system? Because our daughter is just going to start. We just met with Kaya last week. So But she's mobile. She's
Wow.
walking around and using it.
Hands? Can she use her hands fairly well?
Yes, she can use her hands somewhat.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then she could direct access an iPad probably, right? Or a tablet.
Okay, so just wherever then. Yeah.
That just goes with you wherever. Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean that's direct selection, right? Like if your daughter does not have the use of her hands, then direct selection for her would be eye gaze. But if she can use her hands, then you want to be going for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, iPads and tablets are great. You can get nice key guards cut for them just to help, right? Keep them within the right button. That's what I would definitely recommend.
Okay, thank you for that.
For sure.
Very helpful.
All right, well, if there's no more questions, I think we will let everybody go. Did you leave any contact info? Did you want to?
We can put our email in. Sure.
If anybody has any follow-up questions about today, obviously, it's highly recommended to find a qualified SLP that people can go to on a regular basis on their own, right? Anyways, thank you very much for coming. And once again, this is a collaboration paid for by the associations of the Rett Syndrome Societies of BC, Rett Syndrome Society of Alberta, the Saskatchewan Rett Syndrome Association, the Manitoba Rett Syndrome Association, and Ontario Rett Syndrome Association. So thank you to everybody who has made this webinar series come to life. And thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Corinna. This was really informative, and I think is just a wonderful gem that we can have to offer our families. So thank you. Hope everybody has a wonderful night.